back. This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
And welcome back to Boomer Life. I'm Joanne Sutton. We're spending this hour at the Alzheimer's Society of British Columbia, and we're recognizing that Alzheimer's Awareness Month is right now. You're in it. It's the month of January. We're trying to determine what it means to us, what it means to you if it has touched your family, and how the Alzheimer's Society of BC can actually help. So next up, we're going to be speaking about another of the Society's fundraising events. It's called Breakfast to Remember. And Maria, just before we meet our next guest, will you give us a little bit of background about this actual event?
Sure. The Breakfast to Remember happens in Vancouver and in Victoria in February, and it's a wonderful opportunity to bring the business community together to have a great conversation about topics that relate to business, but also topics that relate to business and the impact of dementia. And so it's a great way to have business leaders come and understand how dementia does impact and touch down into the business community, whether that's from an economics point of view, whether it's from a human resource point of view, whether it's from a leadership point of view. So it's a really great way to connect with another group of very prominent people in the community who, are, again, another significant element of our community and spread awareness, but also generate revenue to support the society and what we do.
And I apologize. I should have given you the formal introduction, as Maria Howard is the CEO of the Alzheimer's Society of BC. And also, this sort of goes hand in hand with our last guest, Jennifer Stewart from the Department of Advocacy and Education. It's all about educating, and I think Breakfast to Remember is just another way to spread that message. Don't you think, Jennifer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So moving on to our next guest in studio here, and just moving along to the next guest in studio here, he happens to be the keynote speaker for the Breakfast to Remember in Vancouver. I would like to introduce Helmut Pastrick. He is the Chief Economist for Central One Credit Union, the Central Financial Facility and Trade Association for the BC and Ontario Credit Union Systems. So Helmut, I want to say thank you for joining us here today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Excellent. Now, I know you have a long-standing history in the local and Canadian business community. What can you tell us about what you do right now, your actual job?
Yes, well, myself and my department, we provide a variety of services for credit unions in BC and Ontario, particularly economic information, economic analyses, economic forecasts relating to the local economy, the regional economy, also the national and even international economy. We provide analyses and information on interest rates, housing market activity. We do analyses on credit union financial status as well, and how that might compare to chartered banks. So we provide a range of services. In addition to public relations, we also provide briefings to boards of directors and senior management as well.
So you're a stats guy, you're a numbers guy.
Basically.
Basically, yes. So tell me, how did you ever make a connection with the Alzheimer's Society of British Columbia? How did the two of you get paired up?
Yes, well, that happened many years ago. My mother, unfortunately, was stricken with the disease. That occurred in the mid-1980s, and she ultimately succumbed to the disease some 15 years later. And the Alzheimer's Society, I was aware of its existence, and I decided to support the society through just monetary donations, which I did through the United Way, designating the Alzheimer's Society as the primary beneficiary. And over time, I increased that and just simply made direct donations. So something that's clearly near and dear to me. It was a really sad and tragic event to see my mother basically be possessed by this disease, if you will, and ultimately, as I said, succumb and just sort of wither away. And that was very difficult on my family and, of course, on myself as well.
So you're just trying to find, after witnessing that incredible journey of your mother's, you were trying to find a way to maybe give back and support and help out the society in any way you could.
Yes, indeed. It's certainly I'm well aware of the demographics. That's something else that we analyze in my department, and certainly with the boomers aging, and I'm a boomer as well, and perhaps to some extent it's indeed self-interest. It may well be a hereditary disease. It's uncertain, but clearly support is needed, and it's obviously a growing issue for the economy, for society as a whole, and it certainly needs our support.
You're allowed to be a little bit selfish about it because you know the numbers, and you know you are a boomer and you are heading in that direction. And what sort of statistics do we actually have about the aging population?
Well, we know that a couple of things. We know that as people age, the chance of being diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia increases. So by the time you are over the age of 90, there's almost close to a 50% chance. We also know that I'm quoting the stats sitting beside an economist, right? But we also know that in BC, the number of people who are over 65 is greater than the number of people under the age of 13. So if you start to sort of add that up and think about where that's going, and because there is today still no known cause or cure for Alzheimer's, it really begins to talk to a very large number growing pretty fast
of the population.
Yeah.
So do you talk about these statistics, Helmut, when you are the keynote speaker at the breakfast, or is that the theme to the show, or?
Not completely, but I certainly will work it in. I will mainly focus on the economic outlook for British Columbia. It's a BC or Vancouver audience, so I will also work in I think some of the demographics and the size of the coming problem, the growing demands on our healthcare system, and of course on finances. Fiscal drain will also be present. So, and of course there's also the human cost. So I'm a numbers guy. I'll look at how it's growing, the extent of it, potential costs. And this has been analyzed by others as well. But really, I think the human cost is something that an economist we just can't put a price on. And that is far, far greater than any number that I could ever come up with. So
can you tell me how you actually got paired up with the Alzheimer's Society to be a part of Breakfast to Remember? Yes, well, by invitation. I've attended each one, and so I'm well aware of what occurs during the event. And when I was asked to be a keynote speaker, I accepted, and was most happy to. I'm looking forward to the event as well. Do you share a little bit of your personal story and your personal attachment to the disease at all? I think I will. I think I'll work it in a small way, but the main emphasis will be, of course, on the economic outlook. The housing is a very topical, subject in the Vancouver area, and then I'll work in some of the demographics and the likely impact of the disease going into the future. And what do you get out of that, standing out in front of the crowd and sharing that type of information? What does it do for you? Well, I think it's another form of support for the society. And, when I think back on my experience with the disease, my family's experience, my mother had a very difficult time of it, and we did, receive some support, but certainly looking back, I would have been useful to have more information, more knowledge, and the like. I'm not sure how much it would have changed the outcome, but I think it would have made the transition somewhat easier. So, in a small way, by doing this, I'm again offering my support for the disease, and in some way, at least helping my mother, if you will. Yeah. It's from the heart. So if somebody wants to be a part of the Breakfast to Remember, what would be the best way for the community to get involved, or the business community? Do you actually help promote the event? And myself, in a small way, I'll certainly endeavor to have some of my company's staff, attend the event. And of course, the society has its own marketing campaign as well. Certainly, people can go to our website, AlzheimerBC.org, or they can go to the microsite, breakfasttoremember.ca. The other really important factor about the Breakfast to Remember and reaching out to the business community, and Helmut is suggesting this through talking about the human cost, is that we know that employers
are touched by dementia also in a different way, which is their employees who may be caregivers. And so it really is important as an employer to think about how you are supporting your employees, your workforce, who also might be struggling to support someone at home who has dementia. And we know as people go along the dementia journey, being a caregiver becomes an extremely difficult balancing act, juggling act, when you may have children at home, you may have other responsibilities, your own health issues might be there. And so employers also need to be thinking about that cost and that supportive environment they want to have in their workplace for the employees.
Sure, the impact that it will have on their workplace.
It hits in many different levels.
Mm-hmm. And indeed, some employers could adopt policies whereby some staff could work from home, they could have flexible hours, and of course today's technology, that certainly is much more possible than in the past. So I think employers, they want to retain their good staff, and I think adopting some policies such as this would be beneficial.
So I'm hearing for you as the numbers guy, and you're very well aware of the economic state of the province in Canada and the impact of the aging boomers and the impact on our healthcare system. Yeah. I think you're the perfect guy to help educate the local business community about the impact that Alzheimer's disease and dementias might have on them, that maybe areas that the business community hasn't even thought of yet.
It's really important to start the conversation and help that community, work through that. I also, thinking back to hearing Victoria speak a few minutes ago, speaking about her father, who was 45. So, he was an employee of some employer. So, again, an employer to support someone as an employee who may have dementia is just a really other critical thing to think through.
But the point is that what I'm hearing is that employers, as community members, have a role to play in supporting people living with dementia, as we all do in our community. And dementia will continue to impact all segments of our communities. And this makes it even more important that we all learn a little bit about dementia, increase our understanding, and become a dementia friend.
And this is a perfect reason to participate, as Helmut does, in the Breakfast to Remember. And we've got 2 dates, February 18th in Vancouver and February 25th in Victoria. So whichever one fits your business schedule, we'd like to see you attend. So we're just wrapping up our conversation today, celebrating the month of January as Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And Maria, is there any one thing that we should walk away with from either today's show or from the job that the Alzheimer's Society is doing for this month alone?
I think, January is an exciting month for us to raise awareness in BC about Alzheimer's and living with dementia. If we had one wish, one outcome that would come out of January, it would be that people would sign up to become a dementia friend and take that step to just raising awareness in a formal way as being a dementia friend. So please go to the website dementiafriends.ca.
Or you can visit the website AlzheimerBC.org if you want any more information about today's show, or if you have any questions about what the Society does. Helmut Pastrick, Chief Economist with Central One Credit Union and the keynote speaker for the Breakfast to Remember coming up February 18th. I want to thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're most welcome.
I appreciate your input. Thank you to Victoria Schuster for joining us on the phone from Shawnigan Lake School, paving the way as a young advocate for Alzheimer's disease. Jennifer Stewart, you've just been a core member of this group today, Manager for Advocacy and Education for the Alzheimer's Society of BC. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And CEO Maria Howard, as usual. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Joanne.
And thanks to you for listening today on Boomer Life. We hope we've helped provide you with some tools of information and education about Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. If you want more information, please visit the website alzheimerbc.org, or you can always call the Society. I'm Joanne Sutton. Thanks for listening to Boomer Life on CL 650.